Ladies and gentlemen, shalom. I'm David Mencer, spokesman for the National Public Diplomacy Directorate, here in the office of the Prime Minister this Monday, the 28th of April. It's day 570 of the October 7th war, 19 months to the day since this country was attacked and our people stolen. I'll provide a quick update now and then we'll take your questions. Please put your questions in the chat together with your news outlet and we'll take them. Please include your name as well. Firstly, I have the sad and unenviable duty to inform you of the tragic fallen soldiers amongst Israel's armed forces. The number of fallen soldiers in this war has unfortunately risen to 850. Master Sergeant in the reserves, Asaf Kafri, was 26 years old and from Beit Hashmonai. He fell in battle in northern Gaza. And Captain Ido Valach was 21 years old and from Jerusalem. He too fell battling terrorists in northern Gaza. These are devastating losses to their families and their community. There are no words of mine that can assuage the pain of their parents, their families and their communities. We embrace them, their dear families who have lost their precious heroes, sons and daughters in this war for our very existence. The price of this war has truly been heavy and painful, and each casualty is a world unto itself. May their memories be a blessing forever. Next, regarding the ICJ case in The Hague today. Earlier today, Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar and Deputy Director General of Israel's Foreign Ministry provided a comprehensive case against UNRWA. That speech, those speeches and the presentation and the evidence provided are all available online, and I would point you to it. I won't repeat it all here again, but I do want to augment the case with recently declassified information gained from documents Israel captured in Gaza. Here are 10 facts gleaned from these documents. Number one, terrorists on the payroll, at least 1,462. At least 1,462 UNRWA employees, that's 12% of its Gaza staff, are members of Hamas or Islamic Jihad or other terrorist groups. Not 9, as was repeated on the BBC this morning, 1,500. Not a few rotten apples, not a few people, but unfortunately mass membership of terrorist organizations. Next, terror in the classroom. 80 principals and deputy principals at UNRWA schools, that's 15% of their leadership, are confirmed as terrorist operatives. It's key to understand that UNRWA completely infiltrated the educational arm of UNRWA. Added to the fact that almost every one of the terrorists who committed the outrages on October 7th were graduates of the UNRWA education system. Next, the October 7th massacre. UNRWA staff actually actively participated in Hamas's genocidal attack on Israel. Next, tunnels under schools. Hamas dug terror tunnels under UNRWA schools. In some cases, the school principals themselves were Hamas commanders. Next, command centers beneath the UNRWA HQ. An advanced Hamas server farm and military intelligence hub was found directly underneath UNRWA's Gaza headquarters, and it was powered using UNRWA's electricity. Absolutely clear for any UNRWA employee to see. Next, the human shields policy. Hamas routinely fires rockets from right beside UNRWA schools and warehouses, using the UN's facilities as human shields. Next, weapons cache in UNRWA's HQ. Our armed forces found explosive drones, sniper rifles, rockets and mortars inside UNRWA's Gaza City headquarters. Next, killer social workers. UNRWA social worker Faisal Ali Nami. He was filmed abducting the body of an Israeli civilian during the October 7th attacks. Next, the Hamas curriculum. Hamas operatives embedded in UNRWA's education system use their positions to indoctrinate students and shield terror operations. And UNRWA's blatant denial, despite the overwhelming evidence, UNRWA's leadership refuses to conduct an independent investigation into its ties with Hamas, betraying its mission and the trust of Western taxpayers. Now, these facts, along with many others, were presented today. These were evidence, this was facts, documented. I would point you to the presentation made at the Foreign Ministry this morning. It's available on the Foreign Ministry Twitter feed. These facts are not mere accusations, but are drawn from compelling evidence, exposing a clear and undeniable link between UNRWA and Hamas. The world can no longer ignore the truth behind these deadly alliances that betray the very principles of humanitarian aid and undermine global security. As Israel's foreign minister made clear today, Israel places the responsibility for UNRWA's crimes squarely at the feet of the UN Secretary General. Next to Hezbollah in Lebanon, yesterday the IDF struck Dakhya and destroyed the infrastructure where Hezbollah's precision missiles were stored in blatant violation of the understandings between Israel and Lebanon. Warnings were given to locals in the area to move out of harm's way. But Israel will continue to insist that the ceasefire agreement with Lebanon be fully enforced, eliminating any threats to our sovereignty and the safety of our citizens. Israel holds the Lebanese government responsible for everything that happens within its territory. So to Hezbollah, Israel will not allow them to threaten Israel from anywhere in Lebanon, including the Dakhya suburb in Beirut. And by enforcement, let me be clear that we mean to prevent the formation of a safe haven for terrorist activities in Lebanon. We will continue to operate in the south of Lebanon as needed in order to prevent the Hezbollah terrorist organization from restoring itself and re-establishing its presence in the region. Hezbollah terrorists engaged in terrorist activities in the area have been eliminated. Just last week, 9 more terrorists were eliminated. Israel's goal, it is simply our determination for the safe return of our residents to the north, to their homes in Israeli sovereign territory. Okay, that's the end of our briefing today. I will now take your questions. Please put your questions in the chat together with your news outlet, and we'll take some of them. First question here I can see. The first question here I can see is from Leo Soroka from the Washington Post, and you are quoting Minister Zev Elkin, who said yesterday in an interview with Kol Barama Radio, "For many weeks now, no aid has entered Gaza. It's clear that at some point Israel will have to allow humanitarian aid into Gaza." How does Israel plan to allow humanitarian aid into Gaza? Thank you very much for that question, Leo. Look, when it comes to aid to Gaza, Hamas isn't starving. They're the ones that are stealing. 1.8 million tons of aid have gone into Gaza. That's enough to fill the Dallas Cowboy Stadium 80 times. In the 42 days during the last ceasefire, 25,000 aid trucks entered Gaza. So there's still, to this day, still no food shortage in Gaza. The only ones truly starving are the Israeli hostages. They are chained, they are hidden, and they are tortured in Hamas's terror tunnels. So let's be clear, no one in Hamas is hungry. And when our hostages were finally released, we saw what they looked like. They looked emaciated, they looked like they've just come out of a concentration camp. Their captors, on the other hand, to this day, look well fed. Now, this war, of course, could be over in an instant, and aid would be able to flow through. Of course, it would be over in an instant if Hamas lay down their weapons and release all of our hostages. And in terms of Israel's decision to halt aid into Gaza, it's absolutely consistent with international law, specifically Article 23 of the Fourth Geneva Convention, which states that a country is not required, I repeat, not required to allow aid in if it will be diverted to enemy combatants, as has clearly been the case in this instance. So despite allowing large-scale aid transfers, Israel and the international bodies, including the UN, the UN have actually documented Hamas's systematic theft and weaponization of humanitarian aid supplies. So given that the aid has been used to sustain Hamas's military operations, including the October 7th massacre and ongoing hostilities, excuse me, Israel is under no legal obligation to continue these transfers, and the decision to halt aid the purpose of it is to free our hostages and weaken Hamas's war efforts and accelerate its defeat, and ultimately bring the conflict to an end while upholding Israel's rights under international law. Next question here is from Jason Perry at NTD News. What's our response to UN World Food Programme saying about the issues of food inside Gaza? Thank you for that question, Jason. I've told you the amount of aid which has gone in there. It is incumbent on Hamas to release the food they have stored. What they have done is Hamas have stolen the aid, and they've charged exorbitant prices for Gazans, and have used the money to recruit further terrorists. Hamas need to release the hostages, lay down its weapons, and to allow food to flow in freely into the region. Last question I can see here is from Joel Pollock at Breitbart News. Could you comment on violence in New York around the visit of Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir to the Chabad headquarters, which drew radical anti-Israel protests and ugly counter-protests, and which has been followed by the targeting of synagogues by anti-Israel activists in the days since? Thank you for that question, Joel. Yes, indeed, I have seen those images. Look, I would simply say to you that it is a case of Holocaust inversion, putting the crimes which the Jewish people have faced, specifically in the Second World War, and also by Hamas in Gaza, and inverting them and saying that it is Israel that is committing those crimes. There is no excuse. There is never an excuse for anti-Semitism. There is never an excuse for Jew hatred, absolutely not. And what I've seen there is most definitely anti-Semitic abuse, the attacks on synagogues, the targeting of Jews, which is the most appalling thing to behold in the current times. Okay, that's the last question we have here. Thank you for joining us here today. We'll have another briefing later in the week. Just to let you know that tomorrow evening, Israel commemorates its Remembrance Day, remembering Israel's fallen soldiers in the defense of our country, as well as victims of terrorism. And then the following evening, we will begin our Independence Day celebrations, Yom Ha'atzmaut, celebrating 77 years since the re-establishment of the State of Israel. So, in the meantime, thank you for joining us. We'll have another briefing, as I said, later in the week. Please do stay safe. You can contact us in the usual way, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.